Hello and welcome to Brisbane Health. If you have problems sleeping, waking up in the middle of the night or snoring loudly, then you must see today's show. We'll be chatting with Trevor Cuthbert, who dealt with these sleeping problems for years before being diagnosed with sleep apnea. Also joining us today is Peter Pratt from Bmedical, a Brisbane-based company specialising in the distribution of innovative equipment for sleep disorders. Peter will guide us through different treatment options and take us through the steps involved in diagnosis and follow-up. To finish the show, we will take a look at some of the funding available. Thanks so much for joining us, Peter and Trevor.
No worries.
So to start with, guys, sleep apnea, what is it?
Well, sleep apnea is simply where your airway collapses during the night. So as you're taking an inspiratory breath, your airway has collapsed and you're unable to breathe. That's putting it very simply.
And what sort of people are at risk?
Usually the older age bracket, but that's obviously getting down sort of lower and lower as the obesity epidemic is taking hold. So predominantly people that carry more weight would be more prone to having obstructive sleep apnea, but it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes thinner people do have obstructive sleep apnea as well.
And so, Trevor, you do suffer with obstructive sleep apnea?
I think I have for about the last 25 years. I've been treated for about the last 10.
Can you tell me what the symptoms are?
Basically, snoring was the biggie. Personally, it was a lot of lack of effort, lethargic. I always say I was a slug. I'd come home and I'd sit on the couch and I'd sleep until I went to bed. Short-tempered, tired, but as I said, the snoring was the key indicator for me.
And how did those sort of things affect your life?
My wife was ready to leave me and my kids wouldn't talk to me. Sleep deprivation makes you really, really grumpy, depressed, almost suicidal. And you understand why they use it as a torture, because it's bloody effective. And you're like this constantly, and you like it with your family. You try not to do it at work, so you bring it home. So it, as I said, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And you have no idea why. And when you're younger, you just think it's because you're burning the candle at both ends, but it isn't. It catches up to you.
Oh, it sounds terrible. I can only imagine what it's like not having one night of good sleep, but living with it would be terrible. Is there different types of sleep apnea?
There's a couple. Obstructive sleep apnea is far and away the most common, and that's where, again, your throat is closing and you're just not getting the air that you need, the oxygen, but the air. There's also a central sleep apnea, which is brain-related, where your throat remains open, but your mind or your brain decides that you're just not going to breathe for a little bit. Again, short version, and you sometimes have a mix of both of those. But obstructive is far and away the most common. It's the one that tends to be predicated by the snoring. You have a throat that's closing and it's vibrating, and that's where the noise comes from.
The noise, yeah. Now, we're going to talk about treatment a bit later on, but prevention is even better than cure. So what sort of preventative measures can people take?
Well, for the majority of people with obstructive sleep apnea, it is weight related. So if you're looking at prevention, that would have to correlate with weight. And if you could reduce your weight or not gain the weight in the first place, that would be the best prevention for obstructive sleep apnea. Apart from that one thing, there's really not a lot that you can do.
Right, and so the treatments that are available, what is out there?
Well, you've got your CPAP machine, which is based on continuous positive airway pressure. And this is where you would wear a mask and there is a constant pressure being forced into your throat. And that splints the airways open. It stops the collapses from occurring. So that would be by far the most common treatment and probably the most effective out of all the treatments.
Do you guys think there's a lot of people suffering with sleep apnea that may not know they do? You know, waking up and feeling very tired and things like that?
Look, one of the big issues is that obstructive sleep apnea doesn't happen overnight. It's a progressive thing. So people actually habituate to the effects of obstructive sleep apnea. It may be developing for 5, 10, 15 years, and you actually get to a point where you say, oh, well, this is just how I am. You're tired, you've gotten used to it. The reality is that you're not functioning the way that you should be functioning. And many people don't have any idea of that, and so they never go for a sleep study, they are never diagnosed, and they just don't know. It's probably one of the most underdiagnosed conditions out there.
And so how does a sleep study work?
A sleep study is where you would go into either a hospital, or they can be done at home now, where you have apparatus put on you, where there are measurements taken during the night so that the sleep physician has a very clear picture of what you're doing at night, including the obstructions, how long they are lasting for, how often they happen, what your oxygen level in your bloodstream is doing when the obstructions are happening. All of those things are taken into account. What positions you're sleeping in. So once you've had a sleep study, the sleep physician can actually look at that whole sleep study and can make a very good assessment as to what sort of situation you're in.
And you mentioned sleep position. Can people, if they are suffering from snoring or something like that, is there a better position to be in?
On your side. The very quick version is that when you're on your back, your tongue is going to start collapsing your throat. Gravity pulls it downwards. And most of us with obstructive sleep apnea have the little love handles, and that extra weight is accumulating there. So it's really compressing your throat and making it worse. If you sleep on your side, the gravity's sort of pulling your tongue away from your throat. It's opening up a little bit more. It's very effective for snoring. And the old laugh about the wife jabbing you and making you turn over so you stop snoring. Same thing with sleep apnea. It's your throat is open, it's not vibrating, you tend to be able to get the oxygen or the air that you need. And that's what it comes down to. Sleep apnea stops airflow. No airflow, no oxygen. The two things that your body uses for oxygen is basically your heart and your brain. And it just causes it to stop.
And so I can imagine too, because usually sleep is when our body recovers, that you're not getting that proper recovery. Your oxygen's not...
There is a stage of our sleep which is called the delta deep sleep, which is where the body repairs itself. It's a well-known fact. And you only have short stints during the night, usually 3 or 4 sessions. If you've got obstructive sleep apnea, you can't progress through to those levels of sleep. And so those sort of people actually miss out on the repair work that the body would do during the night. And so then all of a sudden there are other diseases that come into the picture. For example, type 2 diabetes and obstructive sleep apnea are now very, very closely linked. So is heart disease. So this is all a part of the one picture.
That's one of the things with the diabetes, the type 2. You're so tired, you crave energy, and you eat sugar. And that's it, and you're quaffing your Cokes and your diet drink, not your diet drinks, your sugar drinks.
Bit of a vicious cycle.
Very much so.
So of course, sometimes medical treatment is necessary, and Peter will take us through some of the available options after the break. And Trevor will tell us about how treatment changed his life, so much so that he has built a career in the sleep industry.